Okay, cool. So again, today's, we're gonna have a fun lab day, and I want to have this, intro lab, and it's basically going over how Cisco Packet Tracer works, how to navigate through the iOS. We got Pat V on the line, and I know he's touched Packet Tracer in the past before and got a CCNA. So, and it's very prevalent that you learn how to work this or what have you, because again, you can lab up all day, every day, but if you don't know how it works, it's going to transfer into real life, and you not knowing how to do certain things like in a data center or a a networking stack or what have you. So today we're just going to do one of the labs that I sent over to y'all. And again, it's just navigating the iOS. So we're going to walk step by step. It should take only 30 minutes. And again, feel free to stop me at any point if something is something doesn't make sense or what have you. So let's go ahead and roll out. So first things first, right? The activity is letting me know we're gonna go ahead and take care of layer one and see how to access the CLI. Okay, so there is a connections icon, right? And if you hover over, you'll see it. It's right there. You go ahead and click on it. Okay, and so it's gonna go ahead and show you how everything looks like, how everything works. You'll see the different cables, right? Console, right? Automatically choose, copper straight through, copper crossover, right? And some of the things we went over. But basically you have access to all types of cables per packet tracer. Okay. So for this lab, we're gonna go ahead and grab the console cable. So we're gonna grab that. And if I want to add it, right, I need to go ahead and first pick my my source, wherever I want to place one end of it to, right? And I'm going to go ahead and put it into the RS-232 port, right? And again, this is just for a packet tracer. This is not real life. And then I'm going to go ahead and plug it into the console port. Okay. All right. Right. So I have, again, a PC and I have a switch. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead, hop into the PC, right? And of course, this is how a PC looks. It's a virtual PC that Cisco's great software created. Plenty of different modules that you can add on or what have you, but we're not going to focus on that for now. For the lab, we need to go ahead. We're trying to get into the switch, right? So plenty of different applications. We can change the IP settings of the desktop, right? We can go ahead and get to the terminal, a whole bunch of different things, okay? For this, right, since we're trying to do a console connection, right, we're going to go ahead and use the terminal, okay? This is probably familiar to you guys, but this is the configuration. I'll go over it, this configuration, and this is the prompt that you get if you use programs like Putty on how to go ahead. And sorry about that, Pat, I just saw your message. But this is how the configuration looks to go ahead and remote in to create a serial connection to a device, whether it be a switch, router, anything that has a console port, right? Bits per second, it's going to be, 9600 by default. You do have others. I know this one in real life, right? Giving you guys a tidbit, 115, 200 sometimes is used if you're using a USB console cable, the new and improved console cable, but typically these are the defaults, right? So this is how you create a terminal console connection with a device, right? Using a console cable or a rollover cable, okay? You're gonna click OK and blow this bad boy up. As you can see, from the PC, right? From PC1, we are now consoled into the switch, okay? So we're all good, right? So let's go ahead and explore the iOS, right? We're not gonna do the configuration just yet. We're just gonna explore how it works. So we're inside of the device, right? How can we see, right? How can we see a few things? How can we see what's available to us, right? Because currently this mode that we're at, right, where it's showing the name of the device, right, and this, right, and this sign, right, this sign in Cisco, right, in Cisco, and I want to make sure I make that clear, means you are in the mode called user exec mode, right? You have limited availability of what you can do at this mode, right? So again, let's go ahead and take a look at what you have access to. So to do that, right, if you don't ever know what's, what commands to put in, I always tell people go ahead and use the question mark, right? And what the Cisco software would do, it'll give you all the commands you have access to, right? Connect, meaning open a terminal connection, disable, disconnect, enable, right? Exit, log out, ping, resume, show, SSH, telnet, terminal, trace route, okay? From a real life standpoint, typically, let's say it's a NOC, right? If you're working in a network operations center or a security operations center, typically they would have this level of access with a little bit of, privilege, right? To do some other things, right? But beyond this, from at a base level, user exec access is you have the base level access. You can't do any configurations to the switch, right? You could just take a look at some of the configuration and do a few connections, maybe do a hop per hop from device to another device, what have you, if you need to. Okay. And so, right, so we see all these commands, right? I know you guys are probably wondering, do I have to type the whole command out? No. So let's test it, right? There's a feature where you can use the tab button. So let's go ahead and test that, right? So we see some of the commands. Let's say I want to go ahead and type connect, right? But I don't want to type the whole word. I can hit tab, it'll go ahead and spell it out for me. I don't have to type the entire thing, okay? Now, I do have to make sure a few things, right? For the commands that are available to me, right? I have to make sure it doesn't, match up with another one of the commands, and maybe the software will get confused, like, hey, this matches more than one command. Let's be a little bit more specific, okay? So let's try it for this, right? So we see telnet and terminal, right? So the first two letters are the same. If I hit tab, it's not going to complete anything, okay? Because again, I have two options. So it won't complete it for me, right? So I got to be a little bit more specific. The difference is that third letter, right? So if I put tel, cool, it'll finish telnet. If I put ter, it'll be terminal. Make sense? So the main thing here is that navigating through the OS, the context and the syntax is very, context sensitive. And they're going to tell you, they're going to give you a, they're going to give you a Super Mario bleep sign and say, hey, be more specific, be more specific. So that's why you got to, of course, get some practice in, lab it up, and know what you're doing. And it all comes with time. So let's move forward, right? So we explored user exec mode, right? What other modes are there, right? Because of course, we have to configure our switches or what have you. And to do that, we have to, of course, elevate our privileges, right? And to do that, we need to go ahead and get to privilege exec mode, okay? And so let's take a look, right? If there's a command here that tells us how to get there, okay? So remember, we're trying to get to privilege exec mode, right? And so the command to do that, right? The thing that we're trying to do is to enable, right? Privilege commands, right? Or to turn on privilege commands. So to do that, we go ahead at user exec modes, put the command enable, right? So using that shorthand, using tab, I can go ahead and type the word enable, right? And if I hit enter, now, right, that symbol changes. That's a big indicator that you're in privilege exec mode, okay? And so once we are in, right, we have more commands that we have access to, right? As you guys can see, we can do a little bit more things, okay? But yes, now we're in privilege exec mode, right? And you guys are probably thinking, okay, so is this where we configure some things or what have you? You can configure some things, right? Few things, limited, right? But to add a configuration to the entire device, right? You have to enter global configuration mode, right? And let's break down that term, global configuration. You're adding configuration to the entire device, right? But to do that, right, you can't just start at user exec mode, right? You can't just start here and go to global configuration mode. First, you need to go ahead and give yourself the privilege, of administrating and managing this device, right? And so after doing that, then you need to enter global configuration mode. Okay. So Let's take a look at commands. Oop, typo. There we go. Right. So the command to enter global configuration mode is configure terminal, right? Okay. And so now that we're in global configuration mode, we can actually make changes, right? We can make changes to the device, right? Since we have that privilege. Okay. And so if we're ever, we do all of our configurations, what have you, and we're done, right? You want to go ahead and exit this mode because you don't want to stay in here and maybe change something by accident. So you can either type two things. You can either exit, right? Exit will bring you down one level, okay? Or you can do end, which will bring you out of global configuration mode entirely, right? This, my last example just wasn't a good example of showing you the difference between one level exit and the entire level end. So let me go ahead and jump into an interface and actually show you guys how it looks. Interface, fast Ethernet. Okay, so now we're in interface configuration mode, right? So we're one level up from global configuration, right? If I wanted to go ahead and get back to global configuration mode, I can just go ahead and type exit, right? And I can, go back into another interface and do some things, right? But what if I just wanted to go all the way back to privilege exec mode because I'm done with the configuration? I can type end. It'll go ahead and bring me to privilege exec mode. Okay. Hope that makes sense, right? Okay. Simple enough. We're navigating the iOS. So remember I told you guys that in global configuration mode is not the only mode where you can configure things, right? You can configure a few things, right? I want to call them, management system things, right? Maybe the clock or what have you. You can configure that at the privilege exec level, right? So let's go ahead and do that, right? Take a look. Let's take a look at the clock, right? It's apparently it's 1993. On this switch, right? March 1st. Crazy. Okay. So we don't want that. We want to make sure our time is correct, what have you. So if we go ahead, use our search button, right? We can see there's a command for clock, right? And the description, right? It's going to tell us, hey, here's what this command means and here's what it does, right? So let's go ahead and use that command. Clock, right? And if you got, what you guys will see with me, I'm really, finicky. I like to slow down the process because again, nobody's perfect. If I don't know something or not familiar with the command, I'm always going to put a question mark, right? I have no shame for it. And I also, advise all you guys to do it that's listening because again, you don't know what you don't know. So it's better to just go ahead and verify, what's available to you, right? So off my pedestal, let's get back to the configuration, right? So we want to go ahead and change the clock and correct that clock, right? So we saw it, it's for 1993. We went ahead and put the command clock, right? Which gives us access to manage the clock, right? But let's go ahead and put the question mark because I don't know how to go ahead and configure this, okay? So of course, now that question mark is telling me all the commands I have access to, right? And that command being only one is set, right? And that means to set the time and day, okay? So I'm going to put the word set, and I'm going to do another question mark, right? So it's telling me, okay, set the current time, right? In hours and minutes and seconds, right? So it looks like where I'm at, as you guys can see, it's, 11:20, right? So let's go ahead and set that. So 2 for the hour, 2 for the minute, and let's go ahead and set the settings, right? I'm not going to press enter just yet, right? And again, pressing enter, what you're doing is you're telling the switch to accept the commands that you entered, okay? So we're not going to press enter just yet because we're not done configuring or setting the time in this sense, okay? So now we see we have access to two commands, right? Setting the day of the month or the month of the year, right? So we're going to go ahead and first and set the day, right? Today is the 17th, right? And we're going to set the month of the year, right? And this is March. So we do 3. Whoops. What we're looking like. And that might, there we go. Okay. So of course, commands are finicky and you'll learn over time. First I tried by number, but of course it took the first 3 letters of the month. So all good. And of course it is 2023. I felt comfortable pressing enter. I don't think there's anything else outside of that. We can just go ahead and verify. And let me tell you guys about this command. So whenever you hit the question mark, right, and you're entering, you're putting in command, you're trying to put things together and trying to engineer your new configuration. If you ever hit the question mark and don't see anything after it, right, you'll see in, the CR, that means there's no other commands left to put in or available to you at your current prompt, right? And so once you do that, you press enter, and 2 things can happen. The device can accept it or it cannot, right? And so let's take a look and see if it took our changes while being in privilege exec mode. Do the command show clock. Cool. All right, per the switch, it is now 11:19 and it's Friday, March 17th, 2023. Okay. And so with that being said, this is how you navigate through Cisco iOS, right? And so moving forward, of course, I'm going to send you guys labs. I'm not going to go through each and every lab. I think it's self-explanatory. Just wanted to have this tutorial of how to navigate through Packet Tracer, how it works. In the future, we'll definitely have our lab days where we'll jump in and I say, hey, walk me through it. You guys have done it. And if you guys didn't, there'll be some times where I'm trying to explain a theory and of course I'll walk you guys through it. All right. But with that being said, I'm not going to take up you guys St. Patty's Day. You guys enjoy, and I will talk to you later.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem. Have a good day.